I spent quite a bit of time over the last 2 weeks working on a tarp tent that will succeed in windy conditions without putting smoke in my face. Well, I finally got that figured out. I got my 360-degree design working, and it worked really well. And then I've got the semi-plow point tent here that's almost perpendicular to the wind that worked really well too. So now that I've got my tarp tent figured out for windy conditions, I feel like I'm ready for rain, wind, but not cold, because I was really cold. Even though last year I camped out in similar temperatures, I guess I didn't realize just how well those leaves were working for me. So now it's time to focus on a bed. Aren't you a good doggy? The next thing I'm gonna do, which makes this a bad experiment because I'm adding in 2 variables, but the next thing I'm gonna add in is my second tarp. So I'm gonna wrap this one around me because these wool blankets, they're very porous, and that's good for insulating because insulation works from heating up air. But the problem is these porous blankets just let the air go right through. That's why wool is not great in wind. So if I cover myself with this more of an airtight material, then perhaps it'll trap that air in, allowing me to warm it up with my body and be warmer. So that's variable number 2. Now I'll remind you, this is just an exercise, and I'm changing the rules this time. I'm only going to lay out here to see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'm going back inside. If it does work, then I'll just stay out here. Now here's a reminder. I'm intentionally set up out here in the open. I could be camped out over there in the scrub trees where it knocks down the wind quite a bit. But this is an exercise, so I'm intentionally out here in the open where I can get wind and really experience what it's like to be in the wind. That way one day if I'm stuck in windy conditions, it's not new to me. But once I actually get out camping, then I'm going to seek whatever comforts I can find that are naturally occurring to begin with. So last time, my bed was made up of, first, my waterproof canvas poncho. After that, my saddle pads that I plan to have with me on my pack trips anyway, which is about 3/4 of an inch, almost an inch of wool felt. So I really thought those would be more effective. I had 3 layers of wool blankets under me, and then the 3 layers folded over on me. So I really thought that would be an effective bed, but it was about 10 to 12 degrees and I couldn't stay warm. This here is a buckwheat plant that grows up every year really tall, and then it dies, and then the next year it does the same thing again. If we hadn't just had our cold weather, we might see sprouts. They're easy to collect. And they have a hollow interior, so that may just make them excellent for insulation. They've already dropped their seeds, and the elk and the cows don't eat them. So I'm really not robbing nature or animals of any food. So that worked better than I expected. That didn't take me really long to gather either. So it's occurred to me, I don't have to do 2 variables. Instead of putting my poncho down on the ground like I did before, I can put my second tarp as a layer, but not fold it over me. And that way I can try sleeping that way first, so that I've only introduced one variable. And then if I have a hard time staying warm, if I can feel that the blankets really aren't retaining the heat, then I can just fold it over me, and that way I'm able to separate them and know how each one's working. Okay, so it's about 9 o'clock, and I came out here with 2 dogs. The goats and the other 2 dogs are locked up in the house for safety and warmth. Hopefully this works, and I sleep fairly well until 4:30 or 5 in the morning. I've got pretty much the same clothes on, except this time I took my vest off, and it's surprising how noticeable that is. That vest is pretty warm. So I'm going to take my coat off so I can sleep in the same clothes as last time, and I'll use an old coat for a pillow, and the earth will be tonight's bed. Alright, so wish me luck. Good night. I really don't get it. I thought for sure I'd be plenty warm last night. Instead, I was pretty dang cold. Not as cold as I was the previous week, so it certainly helped. But way colder than I thought I would be. What I'm doing is really reducing down what I use. Like, for instance, the mountain men carried out a pair of blankets, is what was often referred to. And so my goal is to carry as minimal as possible, and so what I'm assessing is how minimal I can actually be. A pair of blankets isn't enough for me. 3 blankets is barely enough for me. But that's what I'm learning. So by starting as minimal as I can and just adding slowly each time, then I learn, 1, what each addition does, and 2, how much I need, or in a certain circumstance, how effective each addition is. I'm trying to go at this experimentally. Something I gotta remember though, my body doesn't handle the cold very well at all. That's why I've been slowly doing this conditioning. Over the past few years, it's been making a huge difference. To even be able to stay out like that overnight is a major success for me, really. It used to be that I would get sick. It would start with a head cold in my nasal area and then just turn into flu symptoms. And so this cold conditioning that I'm doing really makes me happy, because now I'm actually to a point where I can enjoy winter time. I still need to be around my wood stove a lot, but at least I enjoy winter. So I got to keep that in mind, even though I was cold, that it's really not that bad. Come here, boy. Come here. Come here. Okay. So a few things that I have been thinking through the day. I'm pretty sure what would have made a huge difference was if I had wrapped up tighter. I believe that the blankets weren't wrapped up tight above my head or around my feet. My feet were particularly frozen. They felt like ice. But then my dog, she came and slept against my feet. And it was funny how much effect that made. It warmed my feet up enough, and then without having to fight with my feet, I guess my body did better. And I slept pretty well from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Like I said in my previous video, I wake up around 4 a.m. anyway. So when I was wide awake, I just decided, okay, good enough, and I went on in at that point. And I gotta say, it's funny how much more enjoyable the wood stove is and a cup of coffee after a night like that. So I think now I've got my shelters figured out adequately enough that I know what to expect in harsh conditions. And now I've got my bedding down well enough that at 12 degrees in the last video, 16 degrees last night, I know what to expect. I know that I can survive. So now I'm going to move on. I'm just going to do some camping situations that I want to do. Probably next, I'm going to dig into the side of a hill a little bit, because I want to see how long it takes to dig and how well it works for a fire ring. So looking forward to that. Folks, I do appreciate all the feedback and the ideas. I particularly enjoy hearing your own experiences that you've had. So thanks for watching, everybody, and me and the dogs and the goats. We'll all see you next time.